No one could forget the day the skies over Earth turned silver. They didn't arrive with thunder or fire. They came quietly, too quietly. 1,000 shimmering vessels hung in the upper atmosphere like frozen drops of mercury, their hulls glinting against the sun. The world stopped. Traffic froze in the streets. Children pointed from playgrounds. News anchors stammered on live broadcasts trying to make sense of it. And then, silence. For 3 days the ships did nothing. They didn't speak, didn't move, didn't attack. Humanity waited, nerves stretched thin as steel wire. Some thought it was a peaceful visit, a sign of contact at last. Others whispered about invasion. But beneath every opinion ran the same current, an aching, gnawing uncertainty. When the message came, it wasn't to the governments or the generals. It was broadcast to everyone. No encryption, no secrecy. Just a voice, cold, flawless, almost mechanical, sliding into every device, every radio frequency, every screen. People of Earth, you have been assessed. You are not a threat. You will comply with our oversight for the safety of the galaxy. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even anger, it was dismissal. The voice was calm in a way that cut deeper than any threat. The world erupted. Cities buzzed with protests, debates, and fear. But the one thing no one wanted to admit out loud was that it worked. The message got under our skin. They didn't fear us, they pitted us. In their eyes, we were insignificant. Weak. Harmless. That was the moment something in humanity shifted. In hidden conference rooms, world leaders spoke in urgent whispers. In dimly lit basements, strangers passed each other scraps of paper filled with impossible ideas. On factory floors, machines that had been silent for decades roared to life again. There was no declaration of war, no grand speech. Just a quiet, simmering decision shared by billions of hearts. We would not be overlooked. The first real contact happened in orbit in the shadow of the moon. A crew of Earth's best, engineers, scientists, soldiers, were sent to meet one of their vessels. They didn't go with weapons. Not yet. They went to learn. The alien ship was colossal, more like a floating city than a vessel. Its surface was smooth, seamless, humming faintly as if alive. A single opening yawned wide to receive them, light spilling into the void. Inside it was colder. The air felt wrong, thin but sharp, like breathing on a mountaintop. And in the center of the chamber stood a figure, not flesh, not entirely machine. A being of metal and translucent crystal, its form shifting slightly as though deciding what shape it wanted to be. Its voice was the same one that had spoken to Earth. Your world will be monitored. Compliance ensures survival. The crew's commander, a graying woman whose eyes still burned like iron, stepped forward. Her voice didn't tremble. We don't accept your terms. The being didn't move. Your defiance is recorded. But it is inconsequential. That word, inconsequential, would echo across the world like a spark in dry grass. From that day forward, nothing was the same. Research labs buried in mountain ranges lit up through the night. Military ships vanished into deep-sea bunkers. The global space network went dark, at least the parts the galaxy could see. Behind the curtain, Earth's brightest minds were tearing apart everything we knew about physics, biology, and warfare. Not to match the galaxy's rules, but to break them. In the months that followed, alien patrols moved in and out of the atmosphere without fear. They took samples of our oceans, scanned our cities, recorded our languages. Their curiosity was casual, clinical. To them, we were insects under glass. And then, the accidents began. The first patrol vanished near the asteroid belt. No wreckage, no distress call, just gone. Weeks later, another ship failed to report in after passing near Saturn. Still, the galaxy didn't suspect Earth. Why would they? Their technology was untouchable. Their fleets were vast. And we were just learning to crawl, weren't we? That was exactly what we wanted them to think. Because hidden beneath the old military deserts, in black vaults where even the air was recycled to hide heat signatures, humanity was building something the galaxy had never seen before. Something not bound by their doctrines of war. Not a fleet. Not a weapon. A game changer. No one outside those walls knew the full truth. Not even the governments funding the work understood the scope. The engineers spoke in fragments, their designs drawn in code and metaphor. Soldiers trained in simulations where the rules changed every hour. And slowly, piece by piece, a plan took shape, not to fight the galaxy on its terms, but to force it into a fight it couldn't predict. But time was running out. On the morning of the 7th month since first contact, the ships in the sky moved for the first time. Not away but down. Thousands of them. Cities darkened as their shadows swept across continents. They didn't fire, not yet. But the message was clear. Our trial period was over. Compliance, or removal. In one small room deep beneath the mountains, a single monitor flickered to life. Lines of code raced across the screen faster than the human eye could follow. Somewhere far above, beyond the clouds, something we had hidden in plain sight was waking up. The commander, the same woman who had stood before the alien envoy, watched the feed in silence. Around her, technicians moved with controlled panic, voices low but urgent. She didn't blink when the alarms began to wail. "They think they know how this ends," she said quietly. "They don't." Outside, the first alien landing craft broke through the clouds. The ground trembled under its descent, a low rumble rolling across the plains. People in the streets craned their necks, waiting for the inevitable light, the heat, the erasure of everything they knew. But before it touched down, the sky lit up with something no one, alien or human, had expected. The light that tore across the sky was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It wasn't fire and it wasn't lightning, it was something stranger, purer, almost soundless. A ribbon of white and gold bent and twisted above the alien craft, spilling across the clouds like a living thing. The invaders stopped mid-descent. Their formation rippled, ships adjusting, scanning, unsure. For the first time since their arrival, hesitation touched them. On the streets below, people froze where they stood. Phones and cameras tilted upward, trying to capture what words couldn't. In every home and every square, the same question rolled through the air like a shared heartbeat. Asterisk, what is that? Asterisk. In the mountain bunker, the commander's eyes never left the screen. "Initiate sequence 2, she said softly. Technicians' hands flew over controls. Beneath their feet, deep in the earth, massive turbines hummed to life. In far-off oceans, disguised buoys rose from the waves, opening like strange metal flowers. Across deserts, arrays hidden under fake sand dunes tilted toward the sky. It had begun. But to understand why, to understand what humanity had placed on the table that day, you'd have to look back, to the moment when the galaxy's arrogance became our most valuable weapon. After the first contact, the galaxy's council had issued a decree. No technology transfer, no political integration. We were too young, too unprepared to join their network. They would monitor us, shape us, ensure we were no threat. They thought this was mercy. Was control. What they didn't see was the quiet rebellion they'd ignited. The dismissal had cut deeper than an attack would have. Entire nations put aside decades of rivalry. Old enemies sat at the same tables. Scientists who once refused to share a lab now traded blueprints like contraband. Something rare happened. Humanity moved with one purpose. In a forgotten hangar on the edge of the Mojave, an old satellite dish became the first listening ear. Signals the galaxy thought we couldn't decode began to trickle in. Movement reports, fleet rosters, even hints of their military doctrines. They didn't bother encrypting most of it. Why would they? To them we were still primitive. That arrogance gave us time. The commander had been one of the first to see the reports. Her life before had been battles over deserts and seas, small compared to what loomed now, but she understood one thing the galaxy didn't: humans adapt faster than anyone expects. "We can't meet them on their terms," she told the Council of Scientists and Strategists. "We make them fight on ours." It sounded impossible. The galaxy's fleets dwarfed anything we had. Their weapons could cut through steel like paper. But Earth had something else: unpredictability. We didn't have to overpower them. We had to outthink them. And so the project began, its real name buried under codes and decoys. Engineers from every continent were recruited under false identities. Retired pilots were called back into service, their records wiped. Supplies moved in convoys marked as humanitarian aid. Every piece of the puzzle was hidden in plain sight. But secrecy came with a cost. Families were left in the dark. Workers disappeared for months, sometimes years. Letters were burned before they were sent. People vanished from city streets to join the work, their absence explained away with thin excuses. The commander herself hadn't seen the sunlight in over a year. Every hour was spent deep in the rock, planning, refining, calculating the one shot humanity might have. She carried a photograph in her pocket, worn at the edges, 2 children on a beach, wind in their hair. No one in the bunker had ever asked who they were. They didn't need to. Everyone down there had something or someone they were fighting for. Now all that work hung in the balance. On the surface, the alien craft still hovered, their engines thrumming like a warning. The golden white ribbons above them pulsed again, brighter this time. And then, they shifted. The light didn't fall, it reached. Thin arcs curled toward the ships, not touching but circling, tracing patterns like symbols in the air. To the untrained eye, it was beautiful. To the galaxy it was unthinkable. Because the patterns were human-made. Inside their ships, alien commanders exchanged rapid, clipped transmissions. Scanners ran through dozens of languages before recognizing the symbols as something crude, primitive, Earth code. But when they began translating, the result wasn't a plea or a surrender. It was a countdown. The galaxy didn't know yet, but they were already inside our trap. The commander's voice cut through the control room. Hold them in place. Make them think it's a warning shot. The technicians moved like clockwork. They weren't soldiers, but in that moment, their fingers on keyboards and touchscreens were as dangerous as any weapon. Across the globe, hidden stations locked into position. Submerged launch tubes whispered as hatches slid open beneath black waves. High above, satellites no longer in any registry turned their faces toward the invading fleet. None of it would make sense to the aliens, not yet. That was the point. Confusion was our greatest ally. But confusion alone wouldn't be enough. The commander leaned closer to the display. They still think they have the high ground. Let them keep thinking that. Until it's too late. The light in the sky flared, filling every horizon. In cities thousands of miles apart, people shaded their eyes, their fear tangled with something else. Hope, maybe, or the reckless belief that somehow, impossibly, they might see tomorrow. No shot had been fired. No one had fallen. But the game had already changed. What humanity had unleashed wasn't a weapon in the way the galaxy understood weapons. It wasn't a beam or a bomb. It was a shift, a sudden bending of the rules that the galaxy thought were unbreakable. And above the clouds, in that still moment before the storm, the alien ships began to realize that Earth was not playing the same game anymore. The sky felt too heavy to breathe under. Every second stretched until it hurt, as if time itself was holding its breath with the rest of the world. The alien fleet hung there, suspended above cities, mountains, and seas, their shadows swallowing whole skylines. The golden white light still coiled in the clouds, wrapping the invaders in an unblinking stare they didn't understand. From the streets, people could see their own reflections in the polished hulls. It was like staring at a mirror that didn't care if you lived or died. Parents clutched their children tighter. Soldiers on rooftops gripped weapons they knew wouldn't matter if things went wrong. Every heart beat the same rhythm, too fast, too loud. Deep underground, the command bunker was alive with tension. Technicians spoke in quick bursts, eyes darting between screens. Heat maps tracked the alien ships in real time, red dots marking every position. A wall-sized monitor displayed the countdown still etched in light above the fleet, numbers slowly ticking toward zero. The commander stood at the center of it all, her jaw tight. Her voice was calm, but her eyes gave her away. There was no calm in them, only steel and something deeper, something that burned. "They think we're bluffing," she said. "Good. Let them keep thinking it." A young analyst turned in his seat, his face pale. "Ma'am, readings show they're charging primary weapons. If they fire, they've already lost," she cut in. But no one in the room felt as certain as she sounded. In orbit, the alien ships began to shift, their formation tightening. Smaller craft detached and swept downward like metal hawks, their movements precise and cold. They weren't here to talk anymore. Inside the alien flagship, orders rippled through in perfect silence. Their kind didn't waste sound on what could be conveyed through thought. The humans had been amusing in their defiance, but the amusement had run its course. The directive was clear. Neutralize resistance, secure the planet, erase the anomaly. The anomaly was us. At the same moment, thousands of kilometers away on a storm-swept coastline, a hidden facility came alive. From the outside, it looked like an abandoned lighthouse battered by decades of wind. Beneath it was something else entirely, a launch chamber carved into the rock, its walls trembling as machinery roared to life. In the bunker, the commander's voice came through the intercom. "Phase 3, stand by. No action until my mark." The tension was a living thing now. The alien crafts were descending lower, so low their thrusters kicked up clouds of dust that rolled through streets like fog. The air vibrated with their power. Civilians scattered, though some stayed rooted to the spot, unable to tear their eyes away from the impossible. In one city square, a boy no older than 10 stared up at the massive shadow overhead, his small hands gripping the straps of his backpack. Beside him, an elderly man muttered a prayer under his breath, words lost to the rising hum in the air. The countdown above the clouds hit 1 minute. In the bunker, alarms flickered yellow. Enemy weapons systems, confirmed active. Targeting grids, locked. The room was a sea of voices, each one feeding the commander pieces of the battlefield, but all of it funneled into one truth: the aliens were about to strike. And still she didn't give the mark. Every second of delay was a gamble. But every second also drew the aliens further into the trap. The young analyst glanced at her, his voice barely a whisper. "Ma'am, 30 seconds." Her eyes stayed fixed on the main display, tracking every alien movement. She was waiting for something. Outside, the sound came first, a low, resonant tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The alien craft slowed. Their movements faltered. The golden white light in the clouds pulsed faster, almost alive now. Then the tone deepened, becoming a vibration you could feel in your bones. Streetlights flickered. Windows rattled. The air shimmered. The aliens shifted into defensive positions, scanning the sky, the ground, the sea. They had no idea where it was coming from. That was the point. In the bunker, the commander finally leaned forward, her lips almost touching the microphone. Her voice was steady, but there was a weight in it that made the air feel colder. "Mark." Around the planet, things that had been hidden for months, years, moved at once. In deep oceans, shapes rose from the black water, their surfaces dripping as they broke the waves. From remote deserts, structures disguised as ruins split open to reveal weapons the galaxy had never catalogued. Above the atmosphere, satellites that had played dead for decades flared to life, their systems locking onto targets with machine precision. The countdown hit 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. Every screen in the bunker showed the same thing: the alien fleet, still in formation, still confident, still certain they understood the rules of this fight. 1. And then, the feed cut. Not because of a malfunction, but because whatever happened next was not meant for every eye. The bunker went silent. On the streets, people craned their necks. In orbit, the alien fleet began to move, not retreating, not advancing, but shifting in a way no one could yet understand. The golden white light above the clouds burned brighter, folding in on itself until it was a single point, so bright it was impossible to look at without pain. Something was about to happen. Something irreversible. And the entire world waited to see if this was the moment humanity would rise, or vanish. The light in the sky didn't explode, it collapsed. 1 second it was blinding, the next it shrank into a pinpoint so small it looked like it couldn't possibly matter. But every sensor, every radar, every alien instrument began screaming at once. Energy levels spiked off the charts. Gravitational readings twisted into patterns that made no sense. The invaders had come expecting to fight with weapons and fleets. But what was forming above them wasn't a weapon in any language they knew. From the ground it looked like the air was folding. Clouds bent toward the point of light as if pulled by invisible strings. Dust rose from the streets, drawn upward in thin streams. People clung to railings and each other as the pull grew stronger. The alien ships adjusted, forming a defensive shell around their command vessel. Their weapons locked into place, but they didn't fire yet. They were scanning, still trying to understand. In the bunker, the commander watched as data poured in faster than anyone could process. The energy signature in the clouds wasn't from their weapon arrays at all. It was coming from something else, something beyond the initial plan. "That's not us," a technician stammered. The commander's head snapped toward him. "Explain." "We triggered the launch," he said, fingers flying over his console. "But this signal, it's older. Buried deep. It's coming from lunar orbit." Her voice was quiet but sharp. "The moon?" The young analyst's face went pale. "We didn't put anything there." The pull intensified. In orbit, the alien ships wavered against it, engines flaring brighter as they fought to hold position. Their formation broke for the first time. The galaxy's perfect, disciplined machines faltered. And then, slowly, something began to emerge from the far side of the moon. At first it looked like an asteroid, dark, jagged, ancient. But as it turned, light caught on its edges, revealing surfaces too smooth, too deliberate to be natural. The object was massive, easily the size of the alien command ship. It moved with no visible propulsion, gliding toward the cluster of invaders with slow, unshakable intent. The alien fleet reacted instantly. Defense grids activated. Shields flared. Smaller craft swarmed toward the newcomer like angry insects. On Earth no one knew what it was. Not the commanders, not the scientists. But one thing was certain. This wasn't part of the plan. The commander's voice cut through the control room. "Keep every eye on that object. If it's hostile." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Above the atmosphere, the alien ships opened fire. Beams of searing energy cut through the void, slamming into the object, and vanishing. No explosion, no damage. The attack simply faded into nothing as if swallowed by the dark surface. In the streets, people saw it too, their fear twisting into something else. Confusion, disbelief. Why aren't they hitting it? someone whispered. Back in the bunker, a new feed came online, grainy visuals from a recon satellite. The object wasn't just absorbing the attacks, it was storing them. Its dark surfaces shimmered faintly, the energy rippling through it like veins of molten metal. The commander gripped the edge of the console. It's feeding. The alien fleet seemed to realize it too. Their formation fractured further, some ships pulling back, others closing in as if trying to block its approach. But it kept moving, relentless, silent. Then, without warning, the object spoke. Not with sound, not with words, but with a pulse of light so deep and resonant it seemed to pass straight through the human body. Every person who saw it felt the same thing. Awareness. Not mechanical. Not entirely alien. Something older. Watching. Choosing. The commander felt it like a cold hand against her spine. She didn't know what it wanted, but she knew this. Its arrival had changed everything. The battle in the sky was no longer just between Earth and the invaders. Something else had entered the field, and it didn't seem to care whose side it was on. In orbit, the alien ships broke their defensive shell and surged forward. They weren't just fighting us anymore, they were fighting it. On Earth, people lifted their eyes to the heavens and saw not one war, but two colliding above them. Ships darted and spun, beams slicing across the black sky, explosions blooming like silent fire. The object moved through it all without slowing, absorbing every strike, its dark surface glowing brighter with each hit. The pull on the planet grew stronger. Oceans shifted. Tides rose higher than they should have. Somewhere deep inside the Earth, sensors detected stress in the crust. The battle above was starting to affect the world below. The commander slammed a fist against the console. If that thing keeps drawing power, it's going to tear the planet apart before anyone wins. No one had an answer. And then the countdown in the clouds, our countdown, flared back to life. It hadn't reached zero after all. The numbers kept ticking downward again. But this time they weren't ours. They belonged to it. The countdown in the clouds blazed brighter, each number carved in light so sharp it hurt to look at. 20, 19, 18. The alien fleet broke formation completely now, no longer a unified wall of power but a swarm in panic. Some ships tried to retreat, others pressed their attack against the massive dark object still drifting from the moon. The object's surface was no longer dull, it shimmered like molten glass, threads of energy racing across its skin. Every hit from alien weapons only made it brighter, faster, hungrier. The pull on Earth's atmosphere was fierce now. Wind tore through cities, waves pounded coasts. In the bunker, the commander's voice cut through the chaos. If that thing discharges over the planet, it's over, for all of us. Her second-in-command turned, sweat running down his temple. Then we detonate early. No, she said. Her eyes stayed locked on the feed. If we fire now, the energy will rebound straight to the surface. We need it at full release, just not here. How do you move something like that? She didn't answer. Instead, she opened a secure channel. Somewhere deep in the Pacific, a submerged platform received the signal. A single vessel began to rise, slow and silent, until its dark, angular frame broke the surface. To the world it looked like a ship. To the galaxy it was a myth, a weapon designed for one purpose. Not to destroy but to push. On the screens, the object loomed closer to Earth's atmosphere. The alien fleet was throwing everything at it now, beams, missiles, kinetic strikes, but nothing broke through. It was almost at the point of no return. The commander's voice was steady. On my mark, full thrust. In the Pacific, the vessel's engines ignited, their force bending the ocean flat behind it. Above, it broke the clouds, a black spear rising into the storm. Its trajectory cut straight toward the object. The alien fleet noticed, and some ships veered to intercept. Human defensive batteries hidden along the coasts lit up the sky, filling it with streaks of fire that tore into the attackers. For the first time in history, Earth's defenses weren't just holding, they were pushing back. The countdown hit 10. The spear ship reached the object, engines burning so hot they left arcs in the air. With a soundless impact, it locked onto the object's surface. Metal claws latched in, and then, with a shudder, it began to push, engines screaming, forcing the massive structure away from Earth's gravity well. 7. The strain tore through the ship's hull. Panels buckled. Lights flickered. But it kept moving inch by inch, dragging the object toward deep space. 6. The alien fleet, realizing what was happening, redirected all fire toward the spear ship. One hit and the whole plan would collapse. But human interceptors launched from hidden runways, weaving between enemy fire, shielding the spear ship with their own bodies. 5. 4. The object crossed the orbital threshold. The pull on Earth lessened, though the sky still churned. 3. The spearship's engines flared one last time, hurling both itself and the object into the dark beyond. 2. In the bunker, the commander whispered, "Hold." 1. The object erupted. Not in fire but in pure light, an expanding sphere that swallowed the alien fleet whole. Ships vanished in silence, dissolved in the glare. The shockwave rolled outward into the void, leaving only emptiness where the fleet had been. On Earth the light faded and the sky cleared. The golden-white ribbons unraveled into the wind. People emerged into the open, looking up at a sky that finally felt wide again. In the bunker, silence gave way to cheers, then tears. The commander didn't move, her gaze still fixed on the empty space where the spearship had disappeared. Then the screens flickered. Static. And through it, a signal. Not from the fleet. Not from the object. From the spearship. A voice, faint but clear, "We didn't destroy it, it let us push it away." The room froze. The commander leaned in. "Say again." The voice came once more, slower this time. "It's not gone. It's moving, somewhere else. It spared Earth." And then the feed went dead. Far beyond the moon's orbit, in the black between stars, the object drifted silently, its glow dimmed but not extinguished. For a moment it hung still. Then it shifted course, not toward the galaxy's heart, but toward somewhere darker. Earth had won its battle. But something else had just chosen its next one. The sky above Earth had never looked so calm. No alien ships. No strange light. Just stars, cold and distant, blinking through the thin veil of clouds. It should have felt like peace, but in the bunker, it was a quieter kind of silence. One weighted with the cost of what had just happened. People were moving slowly now, no longer with the sharp urgency of battle. Screens still glowed, showing empty space where the alien fleet had been. Operators leaned back in their chairs, some covering their faces, others just staring. No one really knew what to say. The commander finally stepped away from the main console. Her legs felt heavier than they had hours before. She glanced at the big screen one more time, as if half expecting that fleet to reappear, and then she turned toward her people. "We held," she said quietly. It wasn't a triumphant shout. It didn't need to be. Those two words carried all the meaning in the world. Around her, some smiled faintly. Others let out shaky breaths. A few simply closed their eyes, letting the truth sink in. Earth had faced the galaxy's judgment and survived. Above the Pacific, the ocean was beginning to settle. Bits of alien wreckage floated, reflecting the pale light of dawn. The spearship that had carried the object away was gone, its crew's last transmission still fresh in the commander's mind. It hadn't been destroyed. It had been allowed to leave. That thought gnawed at her. Weapons didn't allow anything. Back on the surface, cities were beginning to stir. People came out into the streets, blinking in the sunlight. Neighbors embraced. Children pointed to the sky, now just a canvas of soft blue. Soldiers began dismantling barricades, their uniforms still streaked with dust and sweat. In one city square, the boy who had stood frozen under the alien shadow now sat on the curb with the elderly man who had prayed beside him. The boy was smiling faintly, asking questions the old man couldn't answer. But it didn't matter. The fear in his voice was gone. News feeds carried the images worldwide. Some called it the greatest battle in human history. Others called it a miracle. A few questioned if it was truly over. But the one thing no one could deny was this: Earth had stood together. In the bunker, the commander gathered her core team. They reviewed every scrap of data from the battle, energy readings, movement patterns, the strange signal from the object. Piece by piece the picture formed. The object had absorbed everything the alien fleet threw at it. But its energy buildup had been deliberate. It hadn't been random chaos, it had been charging for something beyond destruction. "What does it want?" the young analyst asked finally. No one answered. They didn't know. The commander closed the final report and leaned back in her chair. "Whatever it is, it's still out there. We'll be ready next time." For the first time in her career, she realized that ready no longer meant just military strength. It meant unity, nations working together without waiting for a crisis to force it. The battle had shown what was possible when humanity refused to be underestimated. Weeks passed. The scars of the conflict slowly faded. Cities repaired their streets, coasts rebuilt sea walls, and families reunited. Memorials rose in honor of those who had given their lives during the defense. The story of the spearship's crew spread across the globe, their sacrifice turning them into legends overnight. And yet, in quiet rooms far from the public eye, plans were already forming. Satellites were recalibrated. Research stations received new orders. Humanity wasn't going to wait for the next threat to arrive, it would be ready to move first. Late one night, the commander stood alone on a balcony high above the city. The light stretched for miles, a living reminder of what they had fought for. She thought of the object out there, drifting between the stars, its course unknown. Somewhere beyond human reach, it moved with slow precision. It was not gone. And in some way she sensed it was watching. The stars were the same as they'd been before the battle, but she no longer saw them as distant decorations. Now they looked like doors, each one leading somewhere, each one hiding something. She turned away from the sky and back toward the city. Whatever the galaxy thought of Earth now, it would never again see it as weak. Humanity had changed the rules, and in doing so, it had earned its place on the board. The war was over. But the game had only just begun. And far out in the dark, something else, ancient, patient, and powerful, was already making its next move.